Hi, hello, hello. Today we are talking about my long summer of Pokemon Go. You may have noticed that content release on the Keats the YouTube channel has become very sporadic, very infrequent, and generally just non-existent. The Melver Idol update videos have been more infrequent than ever. Manga videos, as we discussed in another manga hiatus update, are just not happening for the foreseeable future. There's been no let's plays, no gaming, and there's been pretty much no just kind of random other videos. It used to be fairly common that I would just have some subject I wanted to talk about that would get made into a video. Pretty much everything besides Little Tree videos has fallen by the wayside. And there's lots of reasons for this. COVID's restrictions started lifting. I had more stuff to do besides making videos. I moved. You can see I'm in a different room now. Wow, how exciting. Just depression in general. Lots and lots of things lowering my output. But another huge reason, another extremely embarrassing reason is that I became totally, shamelessly, tirelessly addicted to Pokemon Go. In the year of our Lord 2021, I became a Pogoer. I have a pretty complicated history with games that I would describe in the same genre as Pokemon Go. And we're gonna break down exactly what type of game that is. My first real taste of it was way back in 2006-ish. I can't remember when exactly, but quite a while ago when I was in my teens, I spent about 8 hours downloading the World of Warcraft trial on my crappy farm dial-up connection. I really wanted to play this game. My older cousin had been showing me it. It seemed really fun. It seemed, super involved and interesting, and I knew he'd been making a lot of friends on it. It seemed like it had a lot of potential, so I committed myself to it. The trial was 2 weeks long. You could play for free, and for those 2 weeks I did absolutely nothing else besides play World of Warcraft. And that was pretty scary. I realized how quickly my entire life could be consumed by a game like that. And at the time, I was a kid, I didn't really have very much going on. But I recognized a potential problem in myself with this, and I swore off MMOs from that point on. I would never, ever play another MMO like that again. There was other games that I played that came close to that same sort of danger. JRPGs that had a lot of content on the back end, something like Disgaea. Those would regularly steal hundreds of hours from me just because I thought, I'm just going to do everything. I'm going to collect every item. I'm going to get all of the achievements. I'm going to max out my party's stats. And very, very quickly, hundreds of hours would just disappear into those games. Any games that I played that had things like dailies, other check-in mechanics, I would indeed dutifully check in every single day, every single hour if necessary, for months on end, until I was able to finally tear myself out of that vortex. Idle games, I think, toe the line here. Melvor Idle is okay, because you don't actually end up playing it that often. You just sort of set your character to doing things, and then you can walk away for even days on end, and it's okay. But PokeClicker, as we saw, was way too much. That one definitely over the line in terms of how much time it consumed from me. And then we come to Pokemon Go. So I actually played Pogo the very day it came out in Canada, way back in 2016. I was staying with some friends in downtown Toronto, and this was absolutely nuts. I can't think of a more ideal place to play than a big city when it comes out and everyone is so hyped and excited. The fervor around that game when it had been announced, all the way back as far as the Google Maps April Fool's joke. People were super eager to get out there and catch Pokemon, and it had this really wonderful sensation of being at a musical festival where you feel like you're already friends with everybody, and there's just this communal energy of excitement and acceptance and bonding. It was fantastic. It was a really memorable gaming experience, one that I felt super blessed to have. Lots and lots of fun, but I gotta say, even by the end of the day, there just was so little to do on launch. Really, all you had was like catching Pokemon. I think there was some gym system, but I don't really remember how it works. And then there was like finding stops, but stops just gave you items. I don't think there was any like gifting system yet or anything. So I wasn't super compelled to keep playing. I was getting kind of bored with just wandering around the same few blocks catching Pokemon. And I thought, well, that was it. Like, that was the pinnacle experience. I'm not going to be in downtown Toronto for much longer. The level of hype isn't going to be this high for much longer. Is it ever going to be this fun again? Probably not. So I might as well just quit right now and have that one amazing experience and just not play again. And I did. I didn't play again until last May, some 5 years later, when my friend group started playing it with earnestness. There were some among our friends that actually had been playing the whole time fairly casually, and they just sort of like picked up the pace with us eager newcomers or semi-newcomers. And the idea was, this will be a fun way to like hang out and get exercise this summer. We'll get out walking, we'll enjoy the good weather, we'll get some exercise, and we'll have a lot of fun. And it was. I reinstalled thinking, yeah, this makes sense. I'll just kind of casually play while I'm out walking around with my friends. It's not something I'm gonna be like super serious into or anything like that. I was kind of worried more that I would be so disinterested in the actual game that I would kind of like drag down the friend activities or whatever. And for a little while I was playing very casually, just in these sorts of situations. But very quickly I fell into a pattern of playing every single day for hours a day until the 28th of November when I just suddenly quit. I played with friends, but then I also played by myself. I'd orient my schedule around it. I'd go for walks just to play Pokemon Go. I played it in the snow and the rain. I even played PvP. I got to level 39. My Pokédex has something like 640-ish Pokemon in it. I don't remember exactly, and I don't really want to reinstall to find out. I had over 100 unique shinies. I was ranked 21 in PvP. I don't know. I don't know if these things mean anything to any people watching. I'm not really going to try to explain Pokemon Go from like the bottom up or anything like that. But if you do know, I think you can agree that this is a pretty pretty dramatic growth of the account to go from like one day of play 5 years ago, and then in the span of I guess 6 months to go to this level, I think is pretty insane. So let's dive into what was going on in my brain that made me so obsessed with Pokemon Go out of nowhere, and what's going on with the game that facilitates stuff like that. So Pokemon Go is basically an MMO. Despite swearing off MMOs, I ended up playing something that you really cannot dispute is an MMO in almost every way. I knew all along that I wanted to play an MMO. I knew that temptation was always lurking, and it was only the fact that I had so vehemently sworn them off as a kid that was stopping me from, you know, diving into old school RuneScape or Final Fantasy XIV or something like that. Because I could see this desire in myself by watching all these videos on old school RuneScape. Like, we've already talked at length about how much I love Swampletics. There's a lot of other RuneScape series that I watch. I talk to my friends that play MMOs at length about the sort of stuff they're doing, the sort of mechanics of the game. I'm just like really endlessly fascinated by games like this. I'm always like looking at their wikis and stuff. It's really fascinating learning about the histories, the incidents within them. I was always aware that there was some parallel version of myself, some other universe with very slightly different choices, that was just absolutely maxed in FF14 right now. And I had to be vigilant against that person. I had to defeat them. It's like there's this really famous Anthony Bourdain quote where he goes, "I know a part of me just wants to get high and watch cartoons all day, every day, and I have to constantly fight against that person." I felt the same way, that I had to avoid slipping into an endless MMO pit because that potential certainly was there. But yeah, I got tricked into playing one anyways, because in this one you go outside. It's you don't just sit at your computer all day. Instead, you just wander around on your phone. But it's not an MMO. It is an MMO in pretty much every structure, every gameplay loop, the formatting of everything, the rewards. You're just doing tasks to make a multitude of numbers go up. This is the baseline of many genres of games, but there's quests and events that make numbers go up faster. A key component of MMOs, that if you do this one specific thing, you get rewards above and beyond what it would give you normally because you're on a quest to do it. Or if you play during a certain time or under certain circumstances, your numbers will go up faster than they would normally. Having higher numbers allows you to make the numbers go up faster in turn. It gives you more capability to do things. In Pogo, this effect is actually quite limited. In the end, you're still just kind of catching Pokemon for the same amount of experience as anybody else. But you're more capable of like doing raids. You have more items to take advantage of certain things. When there's like double experience for evolving hours, you have like more of a basis of Pokemon, a backlog of Pokemon to evolve. So it still is this very much this system of an accelerating progress, but with decelerating and further spaced out milestones. There's a huge luck component, like in MMOs, with drops. So basically you're just gambling too. You're essentially just looking for systems that will allow you to gamble more efficiently, so that you have a higher chance of getting the things you're gambling for, which is really the ultimate goal. And that's the ultimate goal because in turn that makes you more powerful to make your numbers go up faster. There's a big social drive to play with friends for things like raids, for gifting, for trading back and forth. This is all very typical of an MMO too. Instead of finding a guild within the game that's happening online, your guild is essentially the people that live geographically close to you, that you can go out and do these things with. But you go outside though, right? Like, it has all these similarities, but there is a major distinction in that you're not just driving your character around on the computer, but you are yourself the character wandering around outside. And this is pretty good. I did do a ton of walking this summer. I had lots of fun adventures with my friends. I walked at least 30 kilometers every week. I often hit 50 kilometers a week because I wanted the 10-kilometer rare egg that could have like Riolu and stuff. I explored a lot of places, more than I would have otherwise. There's a strong incentive to go to places you've never been before because you get extra experience for spinning Pokestops you've never spun. Plus there's always that lurking sense of, ooh, maybe there'll be a rare Pokemon that happens to spawn out there for some reason. Even though that's not really how it works mechanically, but whatever. There's kind of a sense of potential that comes from novel exploration that I really enjoyed. And it put another layer upon, I hope this doesn't become too big of a tangent, but I often thought about how there's like the physical world, which is the actual physicality of things that you see. And then there's the world of meaning, which is like a veneer upon the physical world, where everything is recognized and read and understood. And you have this sort of causality of why you see things and why they are in the places that they are. And that the world of meaning actually like coats your perception of the physical world such that you don't really perceive the physical world anymore. You're just perceiving the world of meaning. And now, I don't even perceive the world of meaning anymore. When you're playing Pokemon Go, you perceive the world of Pokemon Go, which is another layer on top of that, where you see things as Pokestops. You see things as spawns that have a lot of Pokemon. You see things as a gym where the team has been in there for enough time that you can fight it. Oh, I meant to include an entire section on ethics in Pokemon Go. I just thought of this. I knew there was something else I wanted to talk about. Whatever. I'll cover it in brief maybe when we talk about gyms a bit. But yeah, it was exciting because where the world of meaning has certain kind of limitations, you become very familiar, at least with your locality. You know what all the stores sell, where people live, there's nothing really shocking about it anymore. The world of Pokemon Go has like this unlimited potential that around any corner there could be a shiny and something, a rare Pokemon, whatever. At the same time, even though this lair was so exciting in the gameplay sense, It also very much flattened the world, that places became just Pokestops, and one is basically as good as another. Even Pokestops that we prized highly because the gifts were really good, and we'll talk about this later, were also kind of flattened in that the actual object that they represented was often very unimportant, and it was more just about like the name. And then just the sensation of looking at the map and seeing this like infinitely flat, long horizon with nothing but these self-similar icons and the same Pokemon just kind of popping up indiscriminately on top of buildings and inside of roads and on water and stuff, was really like a diminishing, I think, of the variety and the richness of the actual world, such that the more that I perceived the world through Pokemon Go, the more it felt like everywhere was the same. And then only by, you know, shaking yourself out of it and looking around at like the buildings surrounding you or the nature surrounding you, do you realize like the actual uniqueness of the world. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. In some sense, it gives you the opportunity to appreciate things, but then if you get too caught up on what gave you that opportunity, you like lose out on that appreciation. It's very psychologically interesting. But yeah, a double-edged sword in that I realized as winter fell that my spirit for pogoing was not going to diminish in the slightest. And that I would indeed keep going outside, except that now I would be trudging through snow and slush and rain to try to achieve the same things. And probably I would end up going out by myself a lot more too, because the weather is crappy and nobody wants to deal with that. And I would probably fail. I would probably fail to achieve the same rate of progress that I did during the summer. Because of all these things, I would get frustrated, and then I would try to make up for it by playing more at home. And this new apartment is like very, very well equipped to play at home. We have 2 Pokestops you can hit that are right across the street. And then if you want to go outside for like 10 seconds, you can get to 2 gyms and like 3 more Pokestops. There's a Pokestop, there's like a grocery store right across the street, and it has a gym as well. And we also have such like crazy spawns since I quit playing an Archon and Noibat and Craniados. Some really, really rare stuff has been spawning that Ashley has been... if you're a fan of the Keats YouTube channel, you know Ashley, who lives with me now. She's been bullying me about all this stuff I'm missing out on. At any rate, I knew I would just end up playing at home a ton to make up for that. At which point, it loses this one excuse of, oh, but you go outside, and it just becomes an MMO like any other. It would just be the same as OSRS or FF14, except a lot less interesting because you're just sitting in one spot catching whatever spawns. So I quit. I just, one day I was just like, nah, and I uninstalled it. Will I play again when the weather gets nice again? And probably a lot more of my friends become enthusiastic about it again? Wait 1 second. I want to check my Discord message, but I don't know what screen it's going to pop up on. No. Oh, that defeated the whole purpose. Anyways, I don't know, it's gonna be tempting, I think, but I sure hope not. Because, you know, standing in the cold, that was just the tip of the iceberg, so to speak, for why this game is really dangerous for me. So why was it that I got tricked? It's not just the, like, going outside, I think. I think if it was literally just the same as an MMO, but you're doing it outside, I would have realized the danger of it. But there's a lot of other subtle differences that I think made it more acceptable to me. One of them that I think is really interesting is there's no real sense of globalness in Pokemon Go. There's no universal marketplace for trading Pokemon, so there's no real sense of the objective value of anything. There's Pokemon that are superior to one another for the actual like tasks of the game, so that if you're trying to like maximize the power of your character, you'd want ones more than another, like for PvE or PvP. But this is counterbalanced by like a million other factors that each Pokemon has uniquely, like their rareness, their cuteness, your own tastes, your history with them throughout other Pokemon games and other Pokemon media. And this creates just like extreme locality. You can only really compare your achievements with your friends, and it's very hard to say that any person's account is like strictly better than yours, except in extreme cases. This overcomes one of the fears of MMOs that I had. That I generally, when I play games, I want to feel like I'm really succeeding in them. Like a game that I'm going to spend a lot of time with. If it's just some random game, I don't care. But if it's a game that I'm going to devote myself to, I want to see some achievement from that. I want to feel like I'm doing better than most people, that I'm climbing some leaderboard, that I'm aiming for the upper echelons. And I felt like I would do this in MMOs too, where I would work endlessly to try to catch up with these most dedicated players. People at the top of leaderboards, people who have global achievements and stuff like that. And of course I would fail because, you know, they had a head start on me and there's only so many hours in the day. But with Pokemon Go, I was able to kind of cheat to get the same sensation, even though I knew in the grand scheme of things, and when I went to like the local Discord servers and stuff, I realized that my account was jack shit. But I was able to catch up with a lot of my friends that had been casually playing the whole time. Or people that picked it up at around the same time as me. I was able to out-devotedness them and catch up to them, which gave me a really sickeningly strong sense of accomplishment, which is really dangerous. It's not the way that you should be playing games, I think, to try to get above people in rankings, but I knew that that was like a desire within myself. Another thing that felt very different is that Pogo, you can't really play it indefinitely with the same level of return. You can do stuff indefinitely, like you can just keep catching Pokemon that are spawning. Oh, hey kitty. And if you have Pokestops near you, you can do this at a rate where you don't run out of items, or you can just wander around endlessly and keep hatching eggs, and getting new eggs from Pokestops. But those have much lower rewards and benefits than content that you do for like the first time each day and it doesn't take very long, or content that you can only do for like a couple hours before it like runs out. You know, even the PvP matches run out, which I thought was kind of shocking, that they would implement something like that, but you can only play 25 PvP games every day. So this tricked me into thinking, you know, I wasn't playing much more than the correct amount each day. I knew I was playing a little bit more than was, like, necessary. I would do all of my dailies, I would do my PvP matches, I would do my daily raid most days. And then maybe I would spend, like, an hour or so on top of that just, like, catching random Pokemon or wandering around hatching eggs. And I was like, oh yeah, this is fine. I'm not like addicted. I'm just playing like pretty much the correct amount. But that was like a trick because, you know, in the end, just the correct amount is still hours and hours each day. What are you looking at, kitty? You having a look around? All right, see. Okay, but obviously there's a lot of things I liked about it. Things that counterbalanced what should have been red flags and danger signs. The aforementioned adventuring outside was really fun. Though I will say it did have kind of a feeling of like corrupting the pureness of some experiences. Like I used to just walk for the sake of it. Things that I discovered, incidents I had, stood on their own as kind of memories when I was kind of just exploring for the sake of exploring, instead of, you know, having to be contextualized with like, oh yeah, that's where we got the raid where 2 people got shinies or whatever. But then, because of Pokemon Go and the fact that we were going out so much more, the quantities of those opportunities to make memories, even if they're kind of propped up memories, was increased so much that it kind of balances out. It's hard to say. It's not like these are diametrically opposed, meeting in the middle, but the main thing I really liked is that it's Pokemon, and I just love Pokemon. I've loved Pokemon since I was a little kid. collecting your favorites, getting a good one or like a shiny for one of your favorites, and then raising it up, coming up with banger nicknames, having it as your buddy, so you like play with it and feed it, and it wanders around on the map with you. It's like a level of connection with a given Pokemon that I think is up there, or maybe even exceeds the feeling of connection you get by taking one of your favorites with you on your team through one of the mainline games. And I think this again is a big double-edged sword. They were like very stingy and slow to release new Pokemon. It was like a pretty big event when a Pokemon that had never been in the game before started spawning. And that was very hype. It made me like appreciate each and every Pokemon they added in a way that I'd never really done before. You know, when you're playing the mainline games, you just kind of go through it. Oh, this area is full of wild whatever. I'm gonna have to fight like 50 of these and I'll catch like one of them. But you don't really have a unique sense of appreciation for it. And in Pogo, you at least briefly do. Like, oh my gosh, the Denny is spawning. The Denny is so cute. Oh, this is so hype. And that lasts like a day. And then you're just kind of sick of it again. And then, yeah, inevitably, even the most exciting new additions end up being grist for the mill. That it's really a weird duality that, like, much more than in any other Pokemon game, you're just endlessly catching Pokemon, which in turn just become fodder for trades or being turned into candy. And then it's only like this 0.01% of Pokemon that you actually keep and form a connection with. So once it like elevates a given Pokemon to a status higher than it ever had before in the way that it is introduced to you and the opportunity you feel in catching it for the first time. And then never has a Pokemon felt like less significant than when you're just catching dozens and dozens of them because you need the experience and the candy. Some more things that I liked about Pokemon Go. Gifts! Dude, this was sweet. At first, I thought this would be one of the most dreadful, tedious parts of the game. If you don't know, whenever you spin a Pokestop, if you can get a gift up to an inventory of 20 gifts, and it just shows the Pokestop that you spun and its name and stuff. And then once per day, per friend, you can send them a gift that you choose the Pokestop, and then you choose a sticker to go alongside with it, and you collect these stickers through various means. And it is really, really tedious if you have a lot of friends to go through and send and receive a gift from each of them each day. And the friend menu is coded really horrendously and always lags super badly and is difficult to scroll through without selecting someone by mistake. So that was terrible, but the fun of choosing a sticker and gift location, oh my gosh. The amount of joy I got from that, from coming up with funny combinations. I don't want to get into examples because they're all gonna sound like so stupid. But just like this like extremely narrow scope of communication where you only have maybe like a dozen stickers to choose from, and most of the Pokestops you can choose from are like pretty plain. They're like north entrance of whatever park. That whenever you find these opportunities by finding like a weird Pokestop or finding like a really funny combination of a sticker and a Pokestop, I don't know, it's like just from like these narrowest constraints, being able to come up with something that feels like creative or like an expression of the self or like reflects your personality in some sense, it's like a really joyful feeling. This really deep hidden language, the secret communication. And then of course when you send it out, you have no idea if your recipient is going to notice or care. Sometimes I would be like, yo, I just sent you a banger gift. Make sure you check it when you open it, if I was like that proud of it. But for the most part, you're just kind of sending it out like a bottle into the sea, totally unsure if anyone will ever like pick up on your message. And I think this was probably the most hype part of playing in new places, and the thing that encouraged me most to explore new areas of my city and stuff in Pogo there, is that you got new gifts, and just like the potential of new combinations of stickers with new gifts is super hype. Gyms, I also thought was hype. Okay, I meant to include a section on like the ethical code of taking gyms, because I found it really, really fascinating. I'll try to summarize it briefly before we talk about the real appeal of gyms, just coordination and aesthetics. But essentially, the way gyms work is you leave your Pokemon in there if it's the same color as your team and there's a free slot. For up to 8 hours, that Pokemon will accumulate coins, which is like the premium currency and generally something you really want a lot of. So it's a pretty important part of the game. And if you beat up the gym and kick out the Pokemon, that's when the owner, the trainer that has that Pokemon will receive the coins. So it's like you want your Pokemon to get kicked out after a certain point when they've earned you enough coins. You want to be able to get your daily limit of coins every day, which is like 50, which means one of your Pokemon has to get kicked out after 8 hours, once per day at least, or some combination of less than 8 hours. But at the same time, it's like very frustrating if your Pokemon gets kicked out too soon. So we had rules about like, oh, you know, if they've been in there for this long, we should take the gym. That's like doing them a favor. But you know, if we can wait until midnight, maybe that's better because then they'll get their 50 coins for the next day. If it's like a low level player versus a high level player, that kind of matters too. You know, maybe in a situation where it's like borderline, if they're a high level player, we kind of assume, oh, they don't need the coins that badly, but a lower level player will kind of go out of our way to make sure they're going to get their full 50. And then there's a whole layer on top of that where you become like an ethical avenger. And if you see that a Pokemon has been kicked out of, like a gym has been taken unethically, that's been taken way prematurely or something, then you are authorized as a way to enforce social mores to kick out the newcomers, the people that made the unethical kick out yourself, which of course benefits yourself as well. But you're hoping to like impose this sort of standard. We had this whole system. It was very interesting to talk about. Very, very fun to enforce in its own way. Taking gyms is kind of fun. The reason it's so fun is because of coordination. What?
Hey, do you want to get tacos in like an hour?
Yeah, okay. Oh, that terrified me. I was so in the zone.
Fucking nerds.
Look, it's Ashley. I'm talking about Pokemon Go. Okay, bye. We're getting tacos later. Hell yeah. Anyways, so most of my friends are all on the same team, on the blue team. So we could easily coordinate taking out gyms, and then this is the best part. This is what I've been building to. You choose a theme for all your Pokemon in the new gym. Doesn't that sound exciting? Maybe not. But it's the same sort of appeal as the gifts, where it's this kind of like secret, very narrow coordination. Stuff like color matching or theming around types, or everybody puts in like a shiny. That's basic. I wanted to go in bold new directions, like every Pokemon in the gym starts with the letter G or something like that. You know, going more abstract with it, or like ideas I had that I was never able to even articulate, where like, you know, every Pokemon has the same weight. You like look up the weight in the Pokédex, or like every Pokemon, you like recreate the team of an actual gym leader from one of the Pokemon games or something like that. Again, just like trying to find weird lateral thinking in this very, very narrow space of like language really, really intrigues me. And then whenever this, like a stranger, you come back to the gym later and you see someone has added their Pokemon and they followed your theme. Whoa, the sense of communication that you've gotten your message across. Oh, that's so strong. That's so good. All right, so those are things I liked and things that I think are good, safe, not potentially life-destroying. Let's talk now about some dangerous things in Pokemon Go. Diminishing returns with diminishing expectations. I think this is a major, major phenomenon of games like this that is very, very dangerous for me and for people with like addictive personalities. Alright, so when you're first starting out, you see a new Pokemon on the map. You're really excited, right? Wow, I've never caught this before. This is a new Pokédex entry. Then, when you've kind of run out of new Pokemon that are just around, you're excited to see a Pokemon where you just haven't caught them enough to evolve one of them. Ah, sweet. I need 50 candy to evolve this. I gotta catch, therefore, like, what? some math amount. Why does my brain shut down when I try to do very basic math on camera? 50 divided by 3. Anyways. No, 50 divided by 4 because you can release them too. So it's like 13-ish. You gotta catch like 13 type of the Pokemon to evolve it. So it's like hype again. Like, even though it's only like 1/13th of a new Pokemon, essentially, you're like, ah, sweet, you know. And then you're just excited to catch it because like you really want to max it out and you need more candy to do that. And then maybe you're just excited because I didn't even get this far, but once you get to level 40, you start getting XL candy. So, oh, maybe you're excited just for the chance that maybe it'll drop some XL candy when you catch it. So your expectations keep diminishing. That you don't expect to see a new Pokemon anymore. But you've just transferred that expectation and that level of hype to a Pokemon you've already seen. So the return in terms of like percentage of new Pokemon or like, you know, the sort of dex entry that you're filling out is getting smaller and smaller and more insignificant. But at the same time, your expectations for what to see are getting smaller and smaller too, such that that feeling never really leaves you. There's many angles with which this works, where the excitement of catching a new Pokemon is replaced with the excitement of catching like a shadow Pokemon for the first time, or purifying a Pokemon for the first time, getting your first lucky of a certain species, getting a good one for PvP, getting a perfect, getting a Shundo, getting a Shundolo. There's just more and more layers that you can kind of tune your expectations for to keep getting that same sense of hype and potential. This is terrifying. This is very different than other types of games that I would say I've been addicted to, like Melee or Tetris or ITG. There, your expectations keep rising, okay? Like, if I am a Melee player, which I am, if I'm going to tournaments and stuff, my expectations at first might be, oh, I'm not going to go 0-2. I'm going to beat at least one person, right? And then as my like ability to advance diminishes, because it gets like exponentially harder to advance in a tournament and beat more and more challenging opponents. If my expectation goes from like, okay, now I'm going to make top 16, now I'm going to make top 8, now I'm going to make top 4, now I'm going to win the tournament. It's my returns are diminishing because it's like harder and harder for me to get to that next level, and it takes longer and longer. But my expectations are actually going up, that it's more and more significant to get to that next level. Do you see how this is different in that one dimension from Pokemon Go? And I think that makes a huge difference because like you're, in this sense, you're like allowed to fail. Like, failing is an option. Like, you simply, not everyone can win the tournament, obviously. Not everyone can pass like a 15 in ITG or get sub 40 sprint. Of course, I've done all of those things because I'm a fucking gamer god. But but like, you're not just going to be endlessly playing with the expectation that you're going to achieve these further and further spaced out goals. You know that there's going to be like a fail state where like you just can't go any further. And so the nature of the addiction is like very different, where if you're not actually making progress and you're not actually improving, you won't get the expectations met. Whereas here, the expectations are met as long as I've confused myself with my own language. You keep getting good returns as long as your expectations keep diminishing. Whereas in other games, you won't get good returns because your expectations keep increasing. That was hard to explain. I hope that makes sense. But I've found that even though they're both trying to activate the same like pleasure center of the brain, this is like a very key difference as to how you get addicted. Another very dangerous addictive thing is the way that they make it seem like you're always like a day away from some threshold or some achievement that's going to change things, such that you can always expect the next day of playing will be different in some way from the current day, and maybe will give you some satisfaction that you're currently missing. And I think they achieve this through this genius mixture of like guaranteed progress, like your friendship levels will guaranteed go up if you play every day and interact. Guaranteed variable progress, like you know that if you play, your experience will always go up by some amount, but that amount is dependent on how much you play and how lucky you get that day. And then always a chance, like on any given day, a Pokemon you need for some quest or some Pokemon that you've made it your own goal to get a good one over something, that Pokemon could spawn. And on any given day, you could make progress on that. Mixtures of big thresholds and small thresholds, and they really only vary in hype because of this frequency difference. It's not so much that the amount they change your gameplay or change the status of your account is majorly different. It's just that there's some that happen infrequently and some that happen more frequently. So it makes it addictive. Here's more dangerous things about Pokemon Go. Spam trading. This was something we did pretty often where we would want like a good one of a certain species, so we would save all of them. And then by trading, you get to re-roll their IVs, but there's like a floor. If you have a high enough friendship level, you know that the IVs aren't going to be worse than whatever. And then there's a 1 in 100 chance of it being a lucky trade, where it has guaranteed very, very good stats and is also much cheaper to level up. So essentially, you just want to keep spamming until you get a lucky trade that has good stats. And this is essentially just like a very long observation of a random number being generated, which is true for like a lot of mechanics in a lot of games, but this one is more blatantly and like simply that. Like it's really nothing else than just that over and over again, just rolling dice. But because the odds are better than just catching wild Pokemon, like the normal system of gambling, and because it happens faster than catching random Pokemon, and it's always the Pokemon that you're interested in, it's like this hyper stimulus version of the normal gameplay. It's like the normal gameplay like distilled down into this one extremely simple thing that's just repeating over and over again. That's dangerous. That's like really scary. And I think, you know, this is probably something a lot of games have. I'm thinking of games that have like rolling, like you pull or you roll on like a banner and you get like this super fast right there version of rewards that you could get normally through gameplay. I think is like a thing, you know? Oh, I can either grind endlessly trying to find treasure chests to get the sword, or I can just roll gacha and maybe the sword will come out. I think that's really scary. Community days. These are days where you're playing the most intensely because there's various gameplay rewards for playing on that day. You want to play for the entire duration, or at least we did as no-lifers. You play from like 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And it matters most on these days that you play in an area with like lots of Pokestops and lots of spawns. So this creates a very deep and profound psychological event where you are maybe at these points most skeptical of your own addiction. You're most concerned with how much your life is being oriented around the game. Like, am I really going to spend all of this one Saturday out here catching Duskull? But you're surrounded by people doing the same thing as you. It really is the community day. Everybody comes out to these prime locations and normalizes your behavior and encourages your behavior because you just see so many people doing the same thing as you. I think this is a really deep thing happening on like the human psyche level, that people will do all sorts of nonsense if they see enough other people doing it too. Many such cases. Pogo is basically a cult. Even more than any other MMO, I think it's a cult. This is the way you behave in public. It just looks exactly like a cult. Especially when you're like going around scanning something. It's hilarious. Most MMOs, people are inside. You don't really hear about it. You have to seek out that information to see what they're up to. Pogo, you just see it on the street. Here's a brief note. When we're talking about this kind of cult-like behavior on people's devotion and stuff, I want to make a brief note on whaling and AR and Niantic schemes. I never spent any money on Pogo, except for Pogo Fest Day. I spent like $9 on the ticket or something. And I think most people who spend money on this game, most whales, even the most extreme whales, have a mentality of like, oh, I don't spend money on this game. Well, except this and this, right? I knew a few people that would say things like, I don't really spend money on this game, you know, maybe 20 bucks a month. If there's something I really want, like a legendary I really want to get a shiny of or something, I'll spend like maybe 20 bucks a month. Is that terrifying? And it's not that 20 bucks a month is a lot, you know, if you have a well-paying job, you don't miss 20 bucks a month, you don't even notice it. But it really shows you how this company has made $5 billion off of Pokemon Go. I also protested in a sense by never doing the AR quests. AR quests are where it asks you to scan a Pokestop, taking a panorama image of it so that they can build a 3D model of it for God knows what reason. I never did those because it was more beneficial not to. Because if you do one, then you have a free slot for an AR quest, and when you are about to get a different quest from a Pokestop, it'll give you the AR quest instead, and that's no good. If it was beneficial to, I probably would have done them. I would have held my nose and done them. Because it really doesn't sit well with me that Niantic has this like weird secret intention that Pokemon Go really is primarily supposed to be a means of them collecting AR data. So whenever, you know, I was getting an AR quest that would give me like a Poffin and I really wanted a Poffin, there's ways you can sabotage it and not send them the data. You can look into that if you want. But yeah, this whole like Niantic scheme just is like really bizarre and really unsettling. I don't know if you saw the CEO of Niantic released a blog post about how he hates the metaverse, how the metaverse is like evil, but instead he wants to make like the AR verse. So he's at war with the Zuck about meta versus AR, and both of them just sound like hell to me. Like I want both to just fail horrendously. But by like playing Pogo, I'm kind of like choosing a side almost. It doesn't sit well with me. And their goal is to spend the billions they make from Pogo on something. So Pogo and all the other Niantic games that come and go sometimes before they're even properly released are really just a means to an end. And this is something that I think Pogo players need to remind themselves of. Because it really explains why they're so stingy and lazy and like build the game so poorly and obviously aren't spending that much money on it. It's because they see it as a means to an end, which really does sound stupid given that this is like a $5 billion achievement that so many millions of people are hopelessly addicted to, and they see it as just an information harvesting tool. Like it really does seem like not being able to see the forest for the trees. But that is the reality of it. That is how they think of these games, and it's so bizarre. Anyways, here's some more dangerous things about Pokemon Go. We touched on this with my refusal to do the AR quests properly and my methods of sabotaging them when I had to do them. That you have this feeling of being against the game while also playing the game. There's all sorts of like kind of subversive, sort of counterintuitive strategies that let you get kind of an edge, that let you maximize your returns. Stuff like quest stacking, fast catching, saving stuff up for particular days that you know are coming, that have certain bonuses, blah, blah, blah. To varying extents, you're kind of like not playing the game naively, but are playing with a certain meta knowledge or exploiting glitches or exploiting other edge cases and such. There's also like a really huge unintuitive mentality thing for PvP that we'll talk about later. And then there's like third-party tools like PokeGenie, which can help you do raids. There's like community spotting maps that can help you find Pokemon with good IVs. I never used those, but I did use PokeGenie, and I did like link up with people that I wouldn't have otherwise to bolster my friend network to do certain things. And I think these aren't just compelling because they reward additional effort with additional strategizing. Wait, I miswrote this. One of these should be rewards. They reward additional... What was I trying to say here? they give you more rewards by being more invested and thinking on this like subversive meta level, right? So that's compelling in and of itself. But it's the feeling that you're getting more than Niantic wants you to. That you're getting the edge on Niantic and playing a bit more efficiently than they think you would. So you're not just getting like strung along by them and having the exact experience they've prescribed to you, but instead you're like one little step above. But it's just a little step. I don't know if this is a common feeling, but on some quiet low level, I felt some satisfaction in tricking Niantic. But of course, really, this is just a trick on me. Niantic doesn't care if I'm fast catching. Niantic doesn't care if I'm using Pokegenie. Niantic doesn't care if I figured out the most efficient way to get gift eggs and it's a little unintuitive. What they care about is that I'm playing. And I've already lost so overwhelmingly and one-sidedly to that. Here's the most dangerous thing about Pokemon Go. The sun is sad. I think the appeal of MMOs and Pogo and a lot of other games like this is that it abuses something very instrumental to human desire, which is the need to set and achieve goals. And I think in modern culture, in the way that most people are forced to live their lives, this is all too rare. The feeling of, I want to do this, I work at it, now I've done this, I think is something that people do not encounter very often in their normal lives. Here we can go on a long, very leftist rant about the total absence of agency or achievement in modern society, about a major flattening of desire into just consumption, where most people's goals revolve around making X amount of money to be able to buy Y thing. And there's very, very little that actually feels like I am going to make use of my unique skills and determination to do something like because I want to do it, not because I have to do it or because it's a means to an end. Only kind of in hobbies, and I think overwhelmingly in video games, do people have this sort of sensation. They certainly don't have it from driving Uber. They certainly don't have it from working service industry jobs. They certainly don't have it by working as an Amazon picker. I think it's something that you really have to go out of your way to seek out if you are employed in the way that most people are employed. And I think video games abuse the absence of this in most people's lives. Because video games allow this in this unambiguous, self-driven, achievable way. You can say to yourself, I want to catch every Gen 1 Pokemon, and then you can go and do it. Niantic doesn't make it easy for you. It's not like they're holding your hand and saying this is something that you're definitely going to be able to do. You might have to like wait a long time for Pokemon to start spawning again. You might have to meet people and trade with them. You might have to do some strange Swampletics types workarounds to get what you need when it's not there in the game. But that makes it all the sweeter, right? Because you've gone up against obstacles. You've looked at the circumstances under which you can do it, and you've still made it happen. That's fantastic. That's like this sort of endeavor is, I think, at the heart of the human condition. But that's also awesome for Niantic, because without making it easy for you, without giving away anything that they could hold back for future rewards, you've put in all this work and spent all this time to achieve your goal that you just set for yourself. So I really do want to make it clear. I think that video games like this abuse the desire for setting and achieving goals. We shouldn't be pacified by toys that let us feel some toy achievement that has no impact on society. Instead, we should demand a society where achievement is aligned with social benefit. And I see only progress in the opposite direction, with lots of systems cropping up to gamify work, with the gig economy making work more and more automatized, such that there is no sense of overarching achievement or progress, but instead you're just endlessly grinding out the same $5 reward. There's very little emphasis on collectivism, on volunteering, on community achievement, on community projects. Everything is privatized, such that even the people that are literally building the buildings are alienated from their work and have no sense of contributing to something bigger than themselves. And I think this is absolutely no coincidence that games like this have become more and more popular and more important to people, because they give you like this only sensation left of being able to achieve things that you want to do. So it's no good. I guess it's like better than just not having this feeling at all, maybe, but only maybe. I don't know if that's true. We won't change things if we're complacent. We won't change things if we're being pacified. So I don't know. So overall, it's a pretty fun game. I had a lot of fun with it. If you like Pokemon, it's a great way to engage with Pokemon, to collect them, to cherish them, to really make your favorite Pokemon feel special to you. I think it's achieved that in a way that no other Pokemon game has to this extent, and that's fantastic. It gets you out exploring your neighborhood and engaging with a community. Of course, it's this kind of weird facsimile of a community, but at least it has the structure of community organization, which I think has a lot of potential. Tons of content and fun to do. Presumably I meant to put fun stuff, but whatever. You know, there's a lot of stuff to do. There's always quests. There's always stuff to fight. You won't get bored. But I think it is too dangerous for a game like me. I think I have a pretty addictive personality in general. And this is a pretty strong double-edged sword. Like, I think having an addictive personality isn't inherently bad. I was addicted to writing for a long time. I just couldn't stop myself from writing for hours a day in like a pretty manic state. But because of that, I became, not to toot my own horn, but like really good at writing, and really capable of like writing for long periods of time on demand. And now I make a living writing. Like now my job, which is pretty cushy and sweet, is writing. So in general, yeah, you get good at stuff if you get addicted to them. If there is actually a skill to learn. Pogo, I don't think it's possible to get good at. You just spend time on it. Something like cooking. Right now I would say I'm like addicted to cooking. Like I want to cook pretty much every day, and if I go too long without doing it, I feel like restless. And I think that's generally good. I think it's good to eat a lot of home-cooked food. It's generally healthier and cheaper. So that's like an addiction I've noticed flare up within myself that I'm like, all right, good. Yeah, go cook. But this is sheer abuse of the system that makes something, this should say addictive. What was I? Why can't, oh, I'm such a good writer. Oh, I make a living writing. There's been like 3 typos in the last 2 slides. The sheer abuse of the systems that make something addictive to me, to ultimately spend way too long on something that's most fun and exciting to play casually. That I was getting very diminishing returns on my fun, because my expectations kept lowering and because the rewards kept lowering, and yet because of this abuse of addictive systems, I could not play a reasonable amount. I had to play an unreasonable amount. I just drove down my expectations for novel content so quickly, so forcefully, just devouring it and idly craving the next hit. And I was thinking about this. When new Pokemon start spawning, I will go so far out of my way to catch all of them so quickly, just because I have this like gnawing feeling of addiction where if I see the uncaught new Pokemon in the wild, I'm like, I gotta deal with that. But wouldn't it be so much more fun if I just calmed down and spaced it out such that there was still new Pokemon in the wild for me like a week after the event started, maybe all the way until the next event starts, you know, which is probably like the pace of play they actually have in mind. That seems almost strictly better, except that, you know, oh god, my Pokédex doesn't grow quite as quickly as it ought to. Oh, my level doesn't get as high as quickly as it ought to. Yeah, it's no good. It's no good the way I play these games. And when I think about, yeah, like, I could have the same feeling of addiction, I could spend the same amount of time and effort on any number of other activities, and all of those I felt much better about the prospect of having spent that time on those than Pokemon Go. And at that point, it just seemed obvious I had to quit. And just quit and do anything else? Alright. That was the main thrust of my talk. It covers most of the stuff I wanted to talk about, but gotta spend a little time talking about what I hated most in Pokemon Go, which was PvP. I could honestly make a whole video on my PvP experience. I think there's a lot to talk about with how this works, and the putting aside even these questions of like what makes something addictive, how do they dole out rewards and stuff. I think just talking about the actual mechanics of the game, I'm so fascinated because they're so terrible. This was like the least fun I've ever played playing a video game, and yet this is where I spent most of my time playing Pogo overall. At first I was like, wow, this is stupid. This is not fun at all. No thanks. But then there was this subtle turning point. I didn't even recognize this as it was happening. But at some point I must have just decided that the rewards for playing PvP were good enough, and I found myself deep into the pit. So here's why it's stupid. It takes forever. All the animations are really, really slow. The only thing that's fast, like surprisingly fast, is matchmaking, which is terrifying. Like the fact that it matches you based on elo, and despite having a pretty narrow range of acceptable elo, you can find a match within like 10 seconds, all hours of the day. There must be so many people playing this all the time. Isn't that terrifying? It's so bad. So it's just 3v3. You only get 3 Pokemon on your team. So really, it's just an RPS meta. Like, you have teams that you can beat, and you have teams that you can't beat. And your rewards come down to how lucky are you that you run into teams you can beat more often than teams you can't beat. That's it. That's really the meta. And even more, bringing it down even further, it really just comes down to, does your lead have to swap out against their lead, or does their lead have to swap out against your lead? I'd say like 80% of matches are decided just by that interaction, and then you just have to watch it play out. It's so stupid. But then the real luck that determines this is that to advance past a certain point, start beating other teams that are like composed around the meta, you know, to actually get to the level of even RPS, which happens at, you know, maybe like 1800 elo, you need Pokemon with good IVs. And that's just luck. Like, you either have them or you don't. And really what this rewards is just playing from the start, playing continuously, catching a lot, catching a ton, giving you the best odds possible to get a Pokemon with good IVs. So it's lots and lots of layers of luck. And you gotta invest a ton of resources into powering up your Pokemon to be at the right level, but then there's like a ton of leagues that give certain restrictions on CP or the types of Pokemon you can use. So to play constantly in PvP, you probably need like 21-ish PvP trained Pokemon that have good IVs and have a bunch of resources dumped into them. So that already is hundreds of hours of normal gameplay in order to get the things you need to play PvP, which in turn is supposed to help you in your normal gameplay, because you sure as hell aren't doing it just for the sake of doing it, because it's no fun. Some stuff is kind of cool. So I really like in games trying to understand what's important to your opponent. Okay? This is something I think is really, really cool. And it applies not just to imperfect information games like Pokemon, but games like chess or like a fighting game, that you have to determine where your opponent feels confident and where they feel weak, where they're comfortable fighting, where they're uncomfortable fighting, and try to steer it into places where you're more comfortable than them. And this comes through really, really strongly in Pogo PvP, where you can see, oh, they're fighting this disadvantageous matchup. This must be their best Pokemon against my Pokemon. That's kind of cool. That's kind of cool, right? Like, you can think about the meta knowledge, you can think about the type of team composition that's popular. There's also a really cool meta thing, I meant to talk about this too, where like you can feel more, it's more likely that they have Pokemon that are common in the main game than like rare Pokemon. So like Pokemon that are literally just rare in general become rare in the metagame and have like a smaller shift on the metagame, even if they are like better. That's kind of cool. But That's it. That's the only thing that's interesting, and it's only interesting because it's so foregrounded because there's nothing else. And all of that is way cooler in actual Pokemon too. It's strictly less interesting than actual Pokemon, but take what you can get. So the actual skills that I'd say are mostly tested. So as I said, the main one is luck. You either have a team that can beat the other team or not. I would say most matches just fall into that dichotomy. But you have to play perfectly too. You can lose. Oh, you want to go outside? You can lose to teams that you're supposed to beat if you screw up. And likewise, if you play perfectly and a team that you're supposed to lose to screws up, you can win. So how do you screw up? How do you play perfectly? Mostly it's like judging exactly when exactly enough time has passed for them to charge their move so that you can swap in a Pokemon that resists that move. It's a very vital skill. There's no timer. There's no indication of this whatsoever. You just have to memorize the timings internally. Judging exactly what percentage of an attack did. There's no numbers. So you can't just look at the number and then remember that number. Instead, you have to just judge based on how much the bar shrank, if you can tank another one or not. It's so stupid. Also, scribbling your finger all over the screen without instantly perishing from the sheer indignity of having to swipe all the bubbles every time for no reason because it's trivial to get it perfect, but you have to do it every time. The rhythm of it when you're playing a lot is kind of satisfying. Like when you start, really reading the timing and reading their tricks. Sometimes people will try to deceive you by charging a move for longer than it needs to be, so you think it's like a different move. There's all sorts of tricks like that, but then you can read those. That feels kind of good. Kind of feels like playing a fighting game where you're just kind of like stuffing them and stuff. But it really only feels good because you're so filled with frustration and boredom and exhaustion that it kind of comes into like a very fuck you mindset where you're just like, yeah, fuck you. It was kind of fun for a little bit. I was playing on 2 phones because it was like borderline possible that I can actually win on both phones. It's like that brain dead, but like it is kind of engaging on 2 phones, and they're the rhythm. That was pretty hard, especially when you have to do the stupid swipey things. It's like rubbing your head and tapping your head and rubbing your stomach at the same time. But the physicality of it is maybe a bit engaging, but only because you're unleashing an anger within yourself by doing it. So at first, I really wanted to get to 3000 Elo, because you get Pikachu in a wrestling outfit. That's so stupid saying it now. So I was grinding away at that, and that was very frustrating and very tedious, and perhaps overall the least fun I've ever had. There's so many little things that just are so maddening, like there's a lot of ties in the game, like a lot of situations where both of you do your charge attack on like the exact same frame. And then there's some arcane formula that chooses who goes first, and very often games are decided by that. Once you get to the higher Elo, it's the same sensation where, you can just look at the teams on paper and know who's going to win, but you still have to play perfectly, and it will often come down to just like a tiny sliver of health. So win or lose, you're staring at that remaining sliver of health and just feeling awful because you either almost threw it away or they just very slightly threw it away. And there's no real sense of like security or mastery or being good. Oftentimes you just lose because your Pokemon is worse. You're in like a mirror match, but they're just doing more damage to you because they have a Pokemon with better IVs. That feels terrible. This was bad. This was probably the least fun I've ever had. Just ever. But I wanted wrestling Pikachu, so I did it. But yeah, I couldn't progress past a certain point. My team was just not good enough. That was very, very frustrating to realize because generally I play games where you can overcome anything like that. In a fighting game, you never just have to stop because your character isn't good enough. You can always compensate for that. In Tetris, you can just always go faster. Maybe your strategy isn't as good as your opponent's, but you can overcome that. But in Pogo, there was literally nothing I could do. I just had to catch better Pokemon. And until I did that, there was really statistically no way I was going to advance much higher in Elo. So this turned into a cycle. This was something that Ashley recommended, where when, depending on the rewards, essentially through PvP, you get a chance to catch the legendary Pokemon that are active in raids. So if you care a lot about that legendary, then you win, and you get tons and tons of encounters. But then, when you don't care that much, or you've got enough of that legendary or whatever, you throw every single match. So your Elo drops really, really low, and then when you choose to win again, it's like trivial, and you can just stomp on everybody. This wasn't fun either. At least it was like easy though, but it just felt like really sickening. And it was pretty popular too. You could see other people with the high ranks throwing past you, and sometimes it would be a race to see who could surrender from the match first. So stupid. This is just a different type of hell. I really don't like, even in this like strategic, it's better rewards in the long run type of losing, it still feels like losing, and I don't like it, and so bad. So yeah, alright, this is the end. And I could go on about PvP for a lot longer, but like, just don't play it. I gotta commit to quitting. This is what I've decided. I went through a bit of a roller coaster of emotions making these slides and making this video, because there were a lot of good times, and I'm sure there would be a lot of good times if I kept playing, but in the end, I really think it is too dangerous for me. It is too painful. So I gotta quit. Ashley, I said, please pillage my account. Please take any shinies you want, anything you want that is interesting for whatever reason. But she refused. She's not convinced that I won't return. She'll know I'd regret it if I ended up returning and playing seriously again. But like, you know, I could just delete my account too, but I don't want to do that because I do want to export my various good Pokemon to someone else, right? Like it seems like a waste. But that's bad mentality. That's still really prioritizing the game. That's still putting the game on some sort of pedestal. If I'm thinking, oh, but I have such and such a shiny. Oh, but I have this. It's so rare. Sometimes, I think this has only happened once, but I wouldn't resist this. That Ashley has used my account to help draft raid. Oh my gosh, whoa! I must have had some sort of stroke writing these slides. That she needs another account to win the raid, and so my account comes out of retirement. All of this, it feels like the pull is still there, and I still talk to people about Pogo. I'm still in the Pogo group chat. I'm still asking, oh, is that in the wild now? Oh, you got a lucky, huh? What's the stats? Like, I don't know. I don't know if I've really escaped. We'll see. We can just wait and see. We'll see if I play again. And here are just some screenshots. My Elo, I think my Elo got a bit higher than this. I didn't find a screenshot of it. I think it got up to like 2100-ish before I gave up. Some good gifts. My perfect Larvitar. This was from spamming Evolves, I think. And pretty big EXP pop-up. Just good gift combination. And 666 shiny Eevee. Best friends. My really good shiny Darkrai. That was a cute gem. Yeah, I don't know. That's it. Okay. Bye.